How does owner financing work to buy a house? Welcome back. This is an important lesson if you have credit challenged problems in your life. So if you're a property owner, that's going to be one thing. But if you're a buyer and you're credit challenged, you really want to learn what's going on in this lesson, because the sellers really want to work with you and you want to be able to buy these properties and buy them right. So nationwide, depending upon the information source, many buyers are attempting to buy property, but they've had a recent divorce, or they've had a bankruptcy, sometimes they've had a business failure, sometimes they've just mismanaged their money. So let's learn a little bit about this financing. So how does owner financing work to buy a house? Well, you want to try to buy the house that a seller is selling and selling on installments, that's for sure. All right, so if you're a credit challenged, you probably made some mistakes. Some people let you get started again if you got a good job, number one, and if you make your payments, number two. If you don't do those two things, well, you're going to be right back on the street again, because we teach our sellers only sell on a contract and do not give you the title to the property. So that's important. Now, my name is Ted Thomas, and I've been involved in real estate for most of my life. However, 30 years ago, I discovered tax liens and tax deeds. When I learned I could buy real estate for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar, I started investing and I never looked back. Now, it was easy to buy them, but the real consideration that you need is what are you going to do about selling them? So as I say, I've been involved in this for about 30 years, and I found a lot of ways to sell these properties. So if you're a buyer of properties, you want to buy with the lowest down payment and the lowest payments if you're kind of getting restarted. Now, I was shocked to learn that there's over 3,000 auctions, 3,000 county auctions, so that's about 5,000 auctions every single year of tax defaulted property. So what happened at a tax defaulted property? Well, that means someone didn't pay their taxes. When they didn't pay the tax, the county sent them notices, and then they finally put them in default, and then the county seizes the property. They basically confiscate the property, and then they resell it. Now, the county doesn't want the property. They've got enough property. They got the parks, they got the roads, they got administration building, so they just want to get rid of it. So they're going to get rid of it at the lowest price possible, which is very close to the back taxes. So there are going to be hundreds, actually thousands of these auctions. So the starting bid at these auctions is the back delinquent taxes. Okay, now I'll be right back and tell you the rest of the information. Okay, now the majority of the population does not understand these local auctions. Okay, the county accomplishes a lot by taking someone that was in default, and then they seize the property, and then they resell it. Now they put that property back on the active tax roll. So what do they want to do? They want monthly payments or annual payments for taxes. So the county's going to wholesale that property and just get rid of it. Now, many people are really surprised to find out that they could buy these properties for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar. So if you're interested in buying those properties, there's going to be those auctions. For you that may be credit challenged and you need to move into a property, look for things that say installment sales. Because as we do, we teach our clients to sell with the installment sale so they can bring the down payment down and so they can get monthly payments on it. So what am I doing today? Well, I'm trying to answer the question, how does owner financing work to buy a house? So you want to buy it. So many of you have experience with installment sales. For example, automobiles, furniture, refrigerators, people even buy cameras, whatever. They buy them on installment sales. Well, there's lots of sellers that will sell with an installment sale. So that means that they've got a property that they might have bought right. Now, I like to buy them at the auction, 10, 20 cents, 30 cents on the dollar, and then resell them. Okay, now if these are properties under $100,000, well, I can tell you right now, if you're a new buyer, you're going to have trouble if you're credit challenged, because the banks aren't going to lend to you. They don't want to lend you $50,000 or $100,000 and make 2 or 3%. They're not interested in that. So the banks don't want you. However, the sellers do want you. Why? Because they're going to charge you 10%, but you can't get the money anywhere else, so you might as well get a 10% loan, but you can get the loan and get going. So the banks always want loans of $200,000, $300,000, because what they'll do is they'll sell those to the government and they'll get a nice fee for doing that. Okay, so properties under $100,000 will be sold with seller financing. At least my clients sell with seller financing. Those are just installment sales. All right, now when they sell on a contract. They don't use a mortgage. They don't use a deed of trust loan. What they're basically doing is they're selling on a contract. Why do they use a contract? Because they want to hold on to the title. They want to keep their security. The security for that property is the title. So you don't get the title, you get a contract, and as long as you make your payments, you're okay. When you finish making the payments, you're going to get the rest of it, which is the title to the property. So I learned about these tax liens and tax deeds many years ago, and this is an exciting business for both sides, whether you're a buyer or a seller. All right, if you're a buyer, you're going to get these properties for pennies on the dollar at the auction. If you're a seller, you're going to try to sell it not for the list price and not for the tax value. You're going to be buy it low, sell it low, and use installment sales. All right, so the real estate people have figured out lots of different ways to put financing on these properties. Basically, they sell with a contract. Anybody can sign that contract. If you own a property and you want to sell, you can sell it with a contract, and that means you hold on to the title. It's very important that you hold on to that title. You don't want to lose the title. Why? Because that would be a mortgage or a deed of trust, and it might take months to get that property back. So you don't want to do that. You want to hold on to the title, okay? So buyers, they love installment contracts. Why? Because they can get lower down payments, number one, and they can get lower monthly payments, and they stretch the payments out. Now, some of the houses at auction are slightly used and abused, so if that's the case, well, now you might have to be doing some fixer-upper while you're saving money by buying. But basically, you want to buy on a contract if you're a buyer. Sellers want to sell on a contract so that they can have the security of holding on to the title. Okay, now the local government does not want these properties, but every local government is authorized to have at least one auction every single year. One auction at least. Now some places they auction every single month. Places like Georgia and Texas, they're having auctions every single month. So this process works for everybody involved. Number one, the county, because they get the money to pay the taxes. Number two, for the person that buys for a bargain at the auction. And number three, for you, the buyer, if you're buying on installment sales. Now, the buyers at the auction are looking for properties that they can buy for 60, 70, and 80% discount. Now, that's a heck of a discount on a property, especially when it doesn't have a mortgage. So if you're a buyer of these properties, you're doing quite well. Okay, but when you want to turn around and sell it, who are you going to sell it to? Well, you could sell it to anybody that's credit challenged because they're going to have trouble with the banks. And so you could sell to them assuming they had a good paying job and they'll pay you. If they won't pay you, you're going to have to evict them. But if they do pay you, you could be making a lot of money. Why? Because when you sell it, you can sell it on Craigslist, you could sell it on eBay, you could sell it on Zillow, you could think about using MLS, you could just put signs on the front lawn, any old sign on the front lawn that simply says seller financing, installment sales, bargain property, all those things. That will get people's attention because they can't go to the bank. So you're trying to buy, if you're a buyer, at low prices, and then you're trying to sell it lower than market price. So take a look at the graph. You're trying to buy it as low as possible, but you're not trying to sell at the top of the market. Why? Because you probably have a property that's slightly used and slightly abused, or maybe you have to fix it up or do whatever. The property that's slightly used and abused still has appeal to people that have credit challenges. Why? Because they need a property to live in. They don't want to pay rent. All right, their challenge is, do they have enough down payment for you, and can they make their monthly payments? So in a minute, I'll go through some of those monthly payments with you, and you'll get the idea. If you're a seller, you can do very well with installment sales. If you're a buyer, it's the only way to go because you've got bad credit. Now, if you've got bad credit, you could build your credit back up over a period of years by making your payments on time. If you don't make your payments on time, you're just going to be back on the street. So what are we talking about today? I'm talking about how does owner financing work to buy a house. Okay, anybody can buy these properties anytime they want at auction, but you're going to need a lot of cash to do that. So if you're a credit challenged buyer, you don't have a lot of cash, you want small down payment, and you want small monthly payments. So that's what a contract for a deed will do. We're not using mortgages. We're not using a deed of trust loan. We're using a contract of deed. Now, does that mean you have to pay the taxes? Yes. Does it mean you have to pay insurance? Yes. Does it mean you have to make maintenance payments and take care of things? Yes, you have to do all those, plus make your monthly payment. So if you're credit challenged, this is absolutely the perfect way to do it. So the contract always requires that you make the payment, make the insurance payment, and make sure that you do those on time. If you don't do that, you're going to be in trouble right away because they're going to evict you from the property. All right, now I'm not a CPA, I'm not a broker, and I'm not an attorney. I'm just a person that does this for a business. I'm an author and a publisher and investor. Now, anybody that's got poor FICO scores needs to get them rebuilt. Why? If you got a poor FICO score, you're never going to be able to get credit at a bank. So the only way you can get financing and get a house is through some kind of seller. All right, sellers will help you repair your credit. Is that a good deal? Yes. Here's how the whole thing works. For sellers, they want to buy it low and sell it to you low. It's a perfect strategy. How many people make out? Well, the sign here shows Walmart, Target, and Costco. That's the buy it low strategy that we're using here. So the seller is going to use that. If you're a buyer, this is the best thing that ever happened to you. Why? Because you can now use installments. Your credit is a challenge. You can fix your credit by making your payments on time. So let's look at an example. So Mr. and Mrs. Auction Buyer, they find a property at the auction. It's assessed at $100,000. So they go to the auction. There's not a lot of bidders. They buy it for 10 cents on the dollar. Not bad. Now, what are they going to do with that property? Well, what they're going to do with it is they're going to sell the property. Now, how are they going to sell it? Well, they're going to put it on Craigslist. Then they're going to put it on eBay. Then they're going to put the MLS. They're going to use Zillow. They're going to put signs all over the property. And they're going to put on the sign, auction bargain, must sell. Value, $100,000, and they can pick any value they want. So what if they pick a value of $75,000? So now they bought it for $10,000. Now they're selling it for $75,000. All right. If you're trying to buy a property, you want to get as low a down payment as possible. They're probably not going to go below the $10,000. But what you're concerned about is the payments. So what if the payments are only $600 a month? Well, that's the bargain of the century. Why? Because you couldn't get an apartment for $600. All right, so now you pay $10,000 down, and you pay the seller $600 every single month, and you try to get the contract for as long as possible. So let's say the contract is 10 years. So 10 years of financing, let's figure this out. So look at the slide. The new buyer, the credit challenged person, is willing to pay $600 a month for 10 years. Wow, that equals $72,000 over 10 years. What's their security? Well, their security, the seller, keeps the deed. They keep the title. The seller maintains the title. The buyer has a contract for 10 years. Now let's take a look at the math from the seller's standpoint. You get in a property for $600 a month, you get the deal of a century. Add it up. $10,000 down payment is what you paid. Your payments are going to be $72,000. The seller is now going to get $82,000 spread over the next 10 years. Folks, if you can buy properties for $10,000 down and get $82,000 over 10 years, it's not going to take you long to have one heck of a good retirement. Now, my name is Ted Thomas, and as I say, right below me is a free gift for you. And two cautions that I want to give you before I leave. Number one, don't buy a property you haven't seen. What if it's next to a pig farm or a chicken farm? What if it's just been through a hurricane? You don't know if it's damaged, so don't buy that property. Auction mistake number two, don't go to the auction and outbid everybody. Always know what your exit strategy is going to be before you start bidding. If you know what you're going to sell it for, you darn sure will stop bidding when there's no profit left. So don't just keep bidding to win. Know what your exit strategy is before you ever bid at an auction. I'm Ted Thomas. Below me is a free gift.